Hello, my name is Dr. Sheila Cuffy, and today I will be giving a presentation on data communication. Today's world could not function without data communications, or at least that's my thought. As a matter of fact, I don't think most people could even function or make it through an average day without coming in contact with or using some form of data communication, myself included. Because of this, data communication has become a vast and increasingly significant subject. In a world in which data communications are involved in nearly every facet of business, personal lives, educational settings, it is paramount that each of us understand the basic types, features, operations, and limitations of different types of data communications. This understanding will make us better bosses, better educators, better students, and simply put, better data communicators. This presentation is designed to give you an understanding and strong foundation about this subject matter, which will enable you to work effectively with data communications. First, let us try to define what is data communications. According to eComputerNotes.com, data communications refers to the exchange of data between a source and a receiver. A more technical definition, though, found in the McGraw-Hill Dictionary of Scientific and Technical Terms, is that data communications is the conveying from one location to another by electrical means. It's also known as data transmission. Next, we will examine the basic components of data communications. The basic components of data communications are the same as a typical communication process, in which you will need a sender, which is this particular person. You will need a message, and you will also need a receiver, which would be your designation. As it is in data communications, you basically would still need your input data, and you will eventually need your receiver. The transmitter is to accept information from the source and change the information such that it is compatible with the transmission link. The sender is the device or computer that generates and sends that particular message. The message, which would be your transmission, is the information or data to be communicated. It can consist of text messages, it can consist of numbers, pictures, sound, videos, or a combination of these. The function of a transmission is to carry information from a transmitter, which is this, to a receiver. The receiver, which is this, is the device or computer that receives the message. The receiver accepts information from the transmission link, and information is then converted to the proper form so that it is acceptable to the designation. Let's take the simple electronic communication method of email, for example. The computer you type the email message in is considered as the transmitter or the sender. The typed message is then known as the data. And then when the message is received to the other computer, it is considered that particular form of a receiver. Next, let's examine the directions and modes of data communications. As described in a textbook, Data, Network, and Internet Communications Technology, a data communications mode specifies the capability of a device to send and receive data by determining the direction of the signal between the two connections. There are three types of data communication modes. There is the simplex model, which is a channel, the half duplex channel, and also there's the full duplex channel. The simplest form of data communications is the simplex channel. In a simplex channel, the message is communicated only one way, without the options of the receiver to respond. Radio is an excellent example of a simplex model. A common analogy is a commercial radio or TV broadcast. The sending device never requires a response from the receiving device. The second channel would be the half duplex, which is this method. And in the half duplex, the communication that takes place is a back and forth type communication, albeit that it doesn't take place at the same time. And this would be an example of a citizens band radio or ham radio. The users can either talk or listen, but both parties cannot talk at the same time. The third type is the full duplex channel. This allows two people to communicate at the same time. For example, instant messaging, as is shown here, will be a full duplex system because two people can be typing at the same time and they can be communicating simultaneously together. Another example of full duplex is a telephone system in which both users may talk and listen at the same time. We will next examine the process and transmission methods of data communications. There are two types of transmission methods used for sending digital communication from one station to another. There is the serial transmission and parallel transmission. In serial transmission, the information is transmitted one bit at a time over one wire. In parallel transmission, multiple bits, as you can see displayed here, are sent simultaneously instead of bit by bit, as in serial transmission, therefore making parallel transmission much faster than serial transmission. Data communication is also affected by distance. The distance between sender and receiver depends upon the types of network used in between. Long distance communication requires a LAN, or local area network connection, which are usually built into computers. Data communication is said to be local if communicating devices are in the same building or a similarly restricted geographical area. For vast differences, such as a long-distance phone call, digitally modulated analog signals are used. So in that instance, we would use an analog signal, and in areas that aren't as distant, we would use an LAN. I want to discuss the benefits, the advantages, and the disadvantages of data communications. So what are the benefits of data communications? Data communications gives you, and me, the ability to easily stay in touch with each other by phones, instant messaging, emails, social networking sites. These are all forms of data communications, and these are great benefits of data communication. The advantages of data communications. For this presentation, I'm going to discuss four advantages of data communications. The first advantage is that it helps us by speeding the sending of information. Communication technology tools like emails and text messaging, they all speed up the sending of information. Of course, it's almost instantaneous. The second advantage of data communications is that it helps us to improve our communications. Data communications helps in the creation of a shared information environment, allowing information to flow easily from the sender to the receiver without barriers. The third advantage of data communications is that it influences the way people interact with each other. Data communications allows us to have the opportunity to visit people, say our bosses, our fellow colleagues, our students, our family and friends, from the comfort of our own homes. That's a pretty good advantage. Or even the location of your choice. It doesn't even have to be in your home. You don't have to stop what you're doing to attend to your matter, but you could get an instant reply and continue to work or to continue to do other things that you are doing. The fourth advantage of data communications is that it provides a voice for those who normally would not speak up for themselves. Face-to-face communications sometimes tend to be difficult for some people. So the use of data communications can help them communicate effectively without having to face the fear of a face-to-face interaction. What are the disadvantages of data communications? Well, although having a face-to-face encounter for some are very difficult, the disadvantage of data communication is that in some areas and in some ways, data communications can be a poor substitute for face-to-face communications. Since employers are using machines to communicate, they get less time to talk to each other or even to know each other. This has resulted in increased, that sometimes bad relationships. Even though the shy ones will benefit from this technology of having data communications, they will also be denied the chance to learn how to interact with others. So there's an advantage and a disadvantage of data communications in that aspect as far as face-to-face communications is concerned. Another disadvantage of data communications is that it can be very expensive. It is very expensive to install and use and maintain data communication systems, especially in big organizations, as in schools, libraries, other types or other forms of communications in the workforce. Another disadvantage of data communication is that we have a worry about the safety of data. Since information has been centralized into databases, it is also exposed to people, sometimes wrong people that have wrong intentions to use our data. Also, information can be attacked by a hacker or even a virus, where all of our data, even though we have put so much time into the collection of the data, can be lost in less than a minute. It is a priority to keep information safe. Data security and privacy should be built into communication software packages to prevent access of data by unauthorized users. So that can be a great disadvantage of data communications, is the safety of those who are using it. I have listed only a few of the benefits, advantages, and disadvantages of data communications. I'm sure if left to think about it, you could probably consider and think about many, many more advantages and disadvantages of data communications. If you had the time, what would you think would be one of the biggest benefits of data communication? What do you think would be a great advantage of having data communications? what would you think would be a disadvantage of data communications? In this presentation, I discuss what is data communications, the basic components of data communications, the direction and modes of data communications, the process and transmission methods of data communications, the role of distance in data communications. Lastly, I discussed the benefits, the advantages, and the disadvantages of data communications, and I wanted to know your input about this. I had the opportunity to present you with only a basic foundations of data communications. But I believe that increasing our knowledge of the importance of data communications will help us both personally and educationally. We've all heard that knowledge is power. With this presentation, I hope to some degree that I have empowered you to want to learn more about data communications. Thank you for this privilege to present this with you today. Have a great day.